Hey guys, what's up? So we've got some brand new Darklord support. They're doing a YCS Darklords sweepstakes, which I'll be covering in a separate video. But this is quite interesting considering Darklords are a few years old, and it's always nice to see legacy support, regardless of whether people have actually been asking for it or not. So the first card is Darklord of Delight. It's a level 4 Dark Fairy effect monster with 0 attack and 1600 defense. Its effect is you can use each effect among the first and second effects with this card's name only once per turn. During any main phase, you can, as a quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, tribute summon one fairy monster face up. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can make all face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense for each fairy monster currently on the field until the end phase, until the end of this turn. This card is quite decent as this enables you to go into some of your higher level monsters. This is part of the problem with some of the Dark Lords, although many of them can actually interact by special summoning, and there are certain graveyard effects you can benefit from. There is a spell card which enables you to special summon a Dark Lord from the graveyard in face-up defense position. However, this kind of sets you up a little bit better, as if you've got that specific monster you've got in your hand that you can ready to tribute. You can instantly bring that out rather than having to do the multiple plays, which means you might be losing more cards. Although a lot of them get effects from the graveyard, it's still relying on them too heavily. So always having a backup plan is a good thing. And the second effect works in conjunction with the first, as if you tribute it, it's going to be sent to the graveyard anyway, so its effect will activate. At minimum, you're looking at least 500 points taken off your opponent's monsters. If you can get a near full board, you could be looking at 2,000, 2,500. That's enough to take quite a few monsters down to 0 or near 0. So in that aspect, you could probably OTK them. I could see this being created in some OTK builds, but time will see whether this deck actually meets what the expectations are. The next card is Darklord of Pleasure. It's got the reverse stats of the previous Darklord. It's a level 4 Dark Fairy effect monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense. And its effect is you can use the first effect with this card's name only once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, you can activate monster effects except fairy monster effects. Also choose 2 Dark Lord monsters in your hand and or deck that have different levels, and if you do, special summon one of them to your opponent's field and defense position, and if you do that, add the other one to your hand. This card reminds me a little bit of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. The whole idea is getting one kaiju on your opponent's field, and then you getting obviously a better one to your field, so you can just run it over. The slight problems I have with this is, I suppose you can send one of the weaker ones to your opponent's fields, such as the one that was above that was mentioned. That way they're not getting any sort of beta, as some of the Dark Lords are quite powerful. And then the whole idea is you could search for your more powerful Dark Lords that can go into the hand and then use their effects. So Excel can let you draw into additional cards, which is one of the main staples of the deck. This is generally a good card, as you know, every card needs its own rotor, its own search system, something to deck thin, something to speed up the process of getting those key cards to your hand, and the faster you get them to your hand, the slower your opponent can react to them, the more likely you are to be kind of successful from it. So I could definitely see this being run as 1 or 2 of. I don't think it's good enough to be run as a 3 just because your opponent is going to be taking some of your monsters from this effect, so it doesn't justify running it as a 3. Now we have a new kind of stronger monster. It's Darklord No Goal. It's a level 8 Dark Fairy effect monster with 2,700 attack and 2,500 defense. And this is what I'm talking about with some of the stronger ones. They're very powerful, but sometimes they can be difficult to bring out. It says you can special summon Darklord No Goals only once per turn. This is a bit of a problem. I can see it's a balancing issue. They don't want you to be able to spam these types of cards, so they've given this a hard summon effect. And they're also giving the second effect of this card a hard once per turn as well. Its first effect is, if your fairy monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. Most of the cards are fairy types anyway, so adding piercing isn't that bad. It gives you an extra level of push to finish off the game and to win, and so this isn't a bad thing. Its second effect is a quick effect. You can pay 1,000 life points, then target one Darklord spell or trap card in your graveyard, apply that target's effect, then shuffle that target into the deck. I like this effect. It's good because it being a quick effect means it can be used on either turn or both turns, both yours and your opponent's. Many of the spell and traps have either negations, recovery, or do something that gives you that much more benefit. And also being able to recover that card to the deck means you're able to recycle it without having to use recovery cards. This is always a good idea because this avoids having to add to your deck. You might be on a 42 card deck, but think, oh, I need this to get this and this back. The whole idea of the Darklords is they can abuse their spell and traps from the graveyards, often by copying their effects, which is quite unique with them. And this is definitely going to help them. I can see people running between 1 and 2 of these, just because this effect is quite powerful. Some of them do cost life points, but there are also cards within the archetype that let you recover life points. So 1,000 life point cost isn't too draining. And we also have a brand new fusion monster for them. I don't think they actually have any fusions. I think most of their cards have just been effect monsters, really. So this is Lucifer, Darklord of the Morning Star. It is a level 12 Dark Fairy fusion effect monster with 4,000 attack and 4,000 defense, and it requires 3 Dark Fairy monsters as fusion materials. This is actually quite generic because you can use this in other decks, really. It can be used, and the attack and defense are very high. That means it's useful for, any purpose, really. You can use each effect among the first and third effects with this card's name once per turn, and only once that turn. 1. If this card is fusion summoned using Darklord Morningstar as material, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. This effect means that it's more beneficial to use a Darklord as within your deck, and to specifically put this card in the Darklord deck rather than putting it in other Dark Fairy decks as it is. The second effect provides fairy monsters you control cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. This is a generic protection effect for your fairy monsters, so I could see it being splashed in other fairy type decks. And the third effect is during any main phase as a quick effect, so this could be either main phase 1 or main phase 2. You can pay 1,000 life points, special summon one fairy monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position. So this is like that spell I was talking to you about before, which can do that within the Darklord deck. However, this is much better. This is able to recover each and every turn, and basically, so long as you have life points, you can keep using this effect. Like I said, you can recover life points with one of the spells as well. So you're not going to be in a position where you could be losing life points. Even worst case scenario, you could always run certain cards, such as Rainbow Life or Solemn Wishes, to slowly gain life points if you feel the need to. But I think this being a finishing card means you're probably not going to have to extend too far using your resources. The only issue I would say is it's quite a heavy summon requirement, needing 3 cards, so you might need some setup before that, and to get the benefit of its first effect, you're going to need to be running at least one of that Morning Star. We also have the last card, which is a trap card. This is Rebellious Darklord. This is a normal trap, and you can only activate 1 card with this card's name per turn. 1. Send 1 Darklord monster that is in your hand or face up on your field to the graveyard. Fusion summon 1 Dark Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand and or field as fusion material, then gain life point equal to the attack of the monster sent to the graveyard to activate this card. Its attack on the field if sent from there. So this gives you the life point recovery that you're going to need to feel for that fusion monster's effect. The ability to summon it using monsters from the field and or hand means that you can you're not limited or restricted as much as you would with certain other cards. It would have been slightly better if you'd been able to abuse the graveyard, but Konami frowned heavily on too much abusing of these types of cards. The recovery features of Darklord's quite decent anyway, so I don't think it would need that kind of support. What do you think of these brand new Darklords? How do you see them fitting with the original Darklords? And is this enough support to make them competitive even on a rogue level? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.